Part 285. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2848. This time, they did not use official posts to enter the city, but queued up like other people to enter the city. In fact, they did not need to go through another passage. There were only so many people, and they entered the city after a while. As soon as he entered, there was a street. Bai Shan lowered his eyes and looked at it. The road was fairly smooth, with some small stalls on both sides. There were not as many people walking around as Qingzhou City, but it was still orderly. Bai Shan and Zhou Man simply dismounted and walked along the crowd, observing the situation in Bihai County along the way. The colors of the clothes worn by the people here are less concentrated than in Qingzhou City, mostly gray and dark cyan. Bright colors are rare, but the faces of the people are still vivid. People walk slowly on the streets, occasionally 3 groups of 5 leaned against each other and laughed. Bai Shan walked along this street until he reached the gate of the county government office. There will be fewer people in this area. The county government is facing the street, but there is a small square in front of it. There is a wall on the side. Post notices on the notice wall. It's just that under normal circumstances, few people come to see the notice wall. Bai Shan and Zhou Man handed over the horse to Daji and walked up to watch. There were a lot of notices posted on the notice wall. There were wanted notices for arresting criminals, and notices advising Nong Same to teach lessons. The paper had turned yellow, and it should have been posted for a long time. Looking at the latest piece of paper, it should be a notice notifying the court that a new county magistrate has been appointed, and further ahead is the notice that Lu County Magistrate Gao Sheng has become the magistrate of Yuda County, and will be leaving Bihai County in a few days. Bai Shan looked at it and nodded and said, "It seems that Magistrate Lu has indeed taken care of Bihai County well." Man Bao nodded and looked at the yaman who kept looking at them. She lowered her voice and said, "They want to chase us." Bai Shan followed her gaze. The 2 yamen guarding the gate of the county government noticed them long ago, and their eyes met each other. After a moment of stunned, the 2 yamen still walked over aggressively with the big knife on their waists in their hands. "What are you doing?" Bai Shan felt that they were too fierce, and they just came to see the notice. Wouldn't such fierceness scare his people who wanted to see the notice? So Jun said with a straight face, "Where's your Fang County chief?" The yaman also looked at his face, and the other party's clothes looked good, and there were so many carriages and servants behind him. Seeing that Bai Shan was not very good at speaking, they immediately changed their attitude and said, "Our county chief is in the Yazhong. Who are you?" "Bai Shandao, I'm your new county magistrate." The expressions of the 2 of them were blank, and they glanced at the carriage and attendants behind them. After they came back to their senses, they immediately bent down and said respectfully, "It turns out that it is the magistrate. Please come in, the little one will go and call the magistrate." After saying that, he left one person to greet Bai Shan and the others, and he ran into the county office to notify the county chief and others. Fang Xiancheng and the others received news from Qingzhou City yesterday. They knew that the new magistrate was coming, and they also knew that the new magistrate Lu was entertaining them in Qingzhou City. They thought that Bai Shan and the others would stay in Qingzhou City for 2 more days, so although they were preparing for the meeting, they didn't expect anyone to arrive. So Fang Xiancheng hurriedly led people out to greet him. Fang Xiancheng is a black-faced man in his 30s, even darker than the Dong Xianwei behind him. He doesn't seem to laugh often, so when facing Bai Shan, he twitched the corners of his mouth and found that his smile was not successful, so he just kept it straight. With a bow on his face, Xiaoguan has seen County Magistrate Bai. With a slight smile on Bai Shan's face, he nodded and replied, "I'm new to this county, so I need your guidance and patience in the future." Of course, it wasn't Bai Shan who said he was the magistrate, he was the magistrate, and there were still some procedures. After entering the county office, Bai Shan took out his letter of appointment and official seal, checked that it was correct, and then looked at Zhou Man who was standing behind him, and said, "The county magistrate is tired, why don't you settle down first?" Bai Shan nodded, "Let's settle down today, I still have work to do for you all." Fang Xiancheng didn't dare, and took Bai Shan and the others to the backyard of the county government. Generally speaking, county magistrates live in the backyard of the county government. There is a small gate between the county office and the backyard, which is used by the county magistrate. Therefore, everyone went out of the county office and went around to the back, where there was a large corner door, and the carriage could enter by dismantling the threshold. In the future, the people of the Bai family will go in and out through this door. There are 2 courtyards inside, but the place connecting the county government office in front is a small garden, but the small garden is bare, not to mention flowers, not even root vegetables, but some grass grows, and some places are left to be pulled out. Grass, someone is cleaning it up. Fang Xiancheng quickly explained, knowing that the county magistrate Bai is coming to take office, the county government sent someone to clean up in advance, but everyone is slow, please don't blame the county magistrate. Bai Shan smiled and nodded and said, "It doesn't matter, we'll take care of it slowly." As he went to the backyard, he asked curiously, "I see there are only a few trees in the garden. Why doesn't the county magistrate plant flowers and plants when he is here?" Fang Xiancheng said, "When the county magistrate first came here, he heard that the soil in Bihai County is not good for growing things. He didn't believe it, so he asked people to dig some soil and spread it in the garden. Later, some flowers and plants were planted and they did not survive. The county magistrate simply stopped planting it. Bai Shan, you can also choose to pave the soil, right?" Bai Shan nodded without commenting. The 2 courtyards in the back are side by side. The main courtyard is relatively large, and there are helpers coming in and out. Bai Shan glanced at them and saw that they were scrubbing tables and chairs. "Let them all retire, I have a lot of people with me, just go back and clean up." He pointed to Lu Gui and introduced them, "This is my housekeeper Lu Gui." Lu Gui immediately saluted them, and then followed a clerk to gather all the people in the backyard together. The county government assigns helpers to the magistrates. There are not many, usually 2 or 3. The wages are paid from the county magistrates, mainly to take care of the magistrates who take office alone. After all, some county magistrates are poor, and they may have a servant with them, and that servant may also be a clan member. The servants assigned by the county government are usually servants with a limited number of years. Bihai County has also assigned 2 to Bai Shan, a woman and an old man, but they are not from the same family. Washing, shopping, cleaning and cooking are very versatile. He has served 5 county magistrates, and is an old man of the county government in the true sense. The old man was guarding the concierge. He didn't come here for a long time, only 4 years ago. He was hired by the county magistrate after he took office. He was a lonely old man. Because he was homeless, he was left in the backyard of the county government by the county magistrate Lu, and he was always watching the door for the county magistrate Lu. After seeing the 2 of them, Bai Shan handed over everything to Lu Gui, and Fang Xiancheng and the others set a time for Bai Shan to pick up the wind and wash the dust in the evening, and then they also left. Ask for votes, ask for monthly passes and ask for best writer of the year likes. See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2849. Lu Gui directly let the servants invited by Fang Xiancheng go away, leaving only Mrs. Xiao and Old Man Fei who were originally invited by the county government. They have a lot of things, the population is mixed, but it is easy to be troubled. After everyone left, Lu Gui asked Old Man Fei to close the door, then led someone to inspect the entire backyard, and also looked at the small door leading to the county office in front, who owns the key to this door. Old Man Fei said immediately, little old man has it here. After that, he handed over a key. Lu Gui took it, opened the door and walked a few steps there. After looking at it, he stepped back, closed the door again, but did not lock it. Instead, he beckoned the guards who followed him, and ordered, "Go and get one. Get the lock." The guard went. A lock and key came shortly after. Lu Gui directly changed the lock, then gave the key to the guard. "You guard the door." Old man Fei, isn't this his job? He was a little worried for a while. Lu Gui smiled at him and said, "I still need you to guard the front gate, but I'm not in a hurry. Let's take a look at the warehouse first." There was nothing in the warehouse, it was empty. When the county magistrate left, he took away what he could take away, and gave away what he could not take away. After all, I don't know who the next magistrate will be, and leaving old things will cause trouble for the other party, so most magistrates will dispose of their own things as long as they don't go too hastily. Lu Gui was very satisfied with the vacant warehouse. He glanced at the room next door and saw that there was a bed frame in it, so he asked, "Who is this for?" The old man Fei said, "The person guarding the warehouse lives." Lu Gui frowned, pointed to another small room next to him and asked, "What is that room for?" "It's vacant. When it's cold in winter, it's taken out to roast and eat tea. It's not used for other purposes." Lu Gui nodded, and then said to the guard behind him, "I will also pack this room out as a warehouse, put the bed in that small room, and the people who come back will live there." Lu Gui went to find it little by little, and Zhou Man and the others in the main courtyard were also busy. The servants carried their luggage into the main room, and Man Bao turned around and said, "The room has been scrubbed." But Mei still disliked it, rolled up his sleeves and said, "Miss, you can go and sit in the study, we'll clean up here." Then he called Julan and Zibing to take out the wooden basin to fetch water. Sister He, who followed outside, stood a little cautiously, and when she saw them, she quickly said, "I went to the kitchen to see, and the pots and the like are still there, but there is no such thing as firewood at all. Hot water for a while." Mei said, "No hurry, my sister-in-law will take Xiao Cao to put down her things first. I'll have someone buy firewood and fetch water, and I'll boil the hot water first." When Bai Shan and the others took office this time, Mrs. Lu was afraid that they would not be used to the food in Qingzhou, and wanted Aunt Rong to come with them. It's just that Bai Shan took into account that the old lady and the others were also used to Aunt Rong's craftsmanship, so instead of bringing Aunt Rong, he chose Sister He, who they brought back from the western regions. In the past 2 years, she has learned a lot of craftsmanship with Aunt Rong and Xiao Qian. She did not leave the Bai family, but signed a 5-year living contract after 1 year. Now that her skills are good, Bai Shan decided to take her to Qingzhou. Sister He only brought a girl named Xiao Cao from the kitchen. She was only 12 years old and was a servant of the Bai family. Sister He likes her very much, and has accepted her as an apprentice. If there is no accident, Sister He will stay at Bai's house in the future, and then let Xiao Cao take care of her. Mei handed the wooden basin to Zibing, and turned to look for Mrs. Xiao. When Mrs. Xiao saw so many people in the newly arrived county magistrate's family, they were all busy, and they were at a loss for a while. Mei called her with a smile and said, "We need to buy something, we are the only ones here, and we are not familiar with this county, so please ask Granny Xiao to show us the way." Seeing that she had a role to play, Mrs. Xiao let out a sigh of relief and immediately took them out to buy things. In May, I ordered a guard and set up the car and left. I bought rice, noodles, grain, and oil along the way, and went to the vegetable market to buy a lot of vegetables and seasonings. I thought about it in May, it would be troublesome to go back and do it now. I took out my money bag and counted it. I simply asked Mrs. Xiao to lead it to a street. When she saw the family was making steamed buns, she went up to eat one, feeling that it was all right, so I ordered 100 with a wave of my hand. "I don't want it now." You can send it to the backyard of the county government in an hour while it's hot. She took out 20 cents of money and said, "This is the deposit, and the remaining 80 cents will be given to you when you deliver it." Obviously, the stall owner had never met such a big customer before, so he was at a loss for a while, but when he saw Mrs. Xiao standing beside Mei, he knew him, so he asked, "Is this the family of the new county magistrate?" Mrs. Xiao saw him asking in front of people, and she didn't know how to avoid it, so she gave him a sideways glance and nodded, "Yes, it's from the Xingxian magistrate's house, don't fool yourself, the steamed buns should be tighter." The stall owner bent down and nodded again and again, feeling both excited and sad at the same time. The excitement is that he has ordered an extra 100 steamed buns in a short while, and the sadness is, can he really get the final payment after sending the steamed buns? May not know that the stall owner suspected that they were going to lose 80 cents in the payment for the goods. And in the backyard, everyone was pretty much cleaned up. Old Man Fei had only served one county magistrate, and it was the first time he saw such a rich magistrate, so he still hasn't recovered until now, and when he saw the carriage return, he stepped forward and removed the threshold in a hurry. The carriage entered the yard, and in May, the 2 bundles of firewood tied to the back of the carriage were sent to the kitchen, as well as the rice, flour, grain, oil, etc. When she returned to the main courtyard, she saw that Julan and Zibing had removed the mosquito nets and curtains in the main room and replaced them with the ones they brought. There were no supplies on the bed, so it was simple, just spread the mat they brought, and take out the quilt and spread it. Then he started to open the box and cage, took out the clothes one by one and put them in the cabinet. He also took out the incense and smoked the cabinet first. She couldn't find anything to do for a while, and followed Mrs. Xiao, who came in to see all this in May. After walking around in May, she seemed to think of her, and smiled, "Mother Xiao, go to the kitchen to help." "Sister, he is in charge of the kitchen. Just follow her instructions." Mrs. Xiao nodded in a daze, and went to the kitchen at the back after leaving the main courtyard. The family guards all lived in the inverted seat on the edge of the front garden. There was a row of houses where 2 people could live in a room. It was not very spacious, but it was very comfortable to pack carefully. At the back of the yard is the room and kitchen where the maids and servants live. There is also a well, which makes life very convenient. Man Bao and Bai Shan were busy in the study. They opened their bookcases, picked their bookshelves, and put the books one by one. See you at 9. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2850. After finishing the books, Man Bao found that there was only one large desk in the room, so he wiped it clean by himself, and Bai Shan and half of them put away her pen, ink, paper, and inkstone. Until Julan came to invite them and said, "Lord, lady, the hot water is ready, it will be late, it's time to prepare to travel." Man Bao and Bai Shan then went out to bathe and change. Daji and the others have already started eating. Sister, he cooked some dishes for them, and they tasted especially delicious with the hot steamed buns that they just sent. Bai Shan and Zhou Man are going to have a big meal. The officials of Bihai County all welcomed Bai Shan and Zhou Man's arrival. Of course, this is the case on the surface, and the inner words can only be understood by Bai Shan in the future. Bai Shan exhaled after receiving the wind and washing the dust. Seeing that Man Bao also exhaled, the 2 of them looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. Then go back to sleep holding hands. The next morning, Zhou Man stayed in bed, and Bai Shan had to get up and go to the front yamen to get used to being the county magistrate. When Man Bao slept and woke up, the sound of Mei and others saluting and greetings could be heard in the yard. Man Bao rubbed his eyes and got up from the bed. Bai Shan pushed open the door and came in. He looked around the screen and couldn't help but be amused. Why are you still asleep? It's noon now. Man Bao didn't believe it. I think the light is still dim. Bai Shan stretched out his hand and pushed open the window. The sun shone through the window, and the room was full of clear light. Man Bao narrowed his eyes slightly. Then Bai Shan smiled and closed the window again. Be careful of catching a cold, get up and get dressed, we have lunch. Man Bao got up. Julan and Zibing brought hot water in. One of them found out the clothes for Man Bao to wear today, and the other went to make the bed. Man Bao stretched his waist, and after washing his face, he sat in front of the dressing table and let Julan comb her hair and thrush her eyebrows. How is the county office today? It's only the first day, but it's just to recognize people. Let's take a look at the backlog of official business in recent days, and also look at some old examples from previous years. Bai Shan said, I probably won't come back for dinner in the evening. Doctors here, as well as some important gentry and big businessmen in the county. Only then did Man Bao ponder the taste. I remember when we were young, Master Bai would go to the county seat and me and Zhou City several times a year to accompany the magistrate or the provincial governor for dinner. Bai Shan nodded approvingly and said, yes, this is the meal. Today is to get to know each other. When I eat next time, it will be familiar, or I have something to do. Man Bao has nothing to say about this. Bai Shan asked her, are you going? After thinking about it, Man Bao shook his head directly, go ahead, I will go to see them through you when I need to use them, and I don't have to worry about managing this network. She said, and I went, they must be uncomfortable. For example, last night, the atmosphere of the meal was not as comfortable as the meal in Qingzhou, and all night Fang Xiancheng and others were very cautious. Bai Shan nodded, and seeing that her hair was done, he reached out and took the clothes from the cake and put them on her, and asked, what are you going to do this afternoon? I'll go shopping in the afternoon, Man Bao said, look at the customs of your Bihai County, and come back with some shopping. She motioned Bai Shan to look inside the house. There's still a lot of things missing in the house, I'll go buy some utensils. Let's visit the pharmacies and medical stores in Bihai County, and walk around the streets. Bai Shan then said, then you can bring Daji with me, and I'll just pick another guard to follow. No, I have a cake. Bai Shan insisted, you can take it, we have brought a lot of people here this time, Lu Gui has to use people, I plan to keep 3 for him, the rest are not counted, and only 1 is left at home for orders, and the rest are all compiled into the yamen. Man Bao was surprised, how about 6 places, the shortage of Bihai County's county government is so serious. There are only 2 missing, but I don't account for the 6 of them. The remaining 2 are still available from the county. Bai Shan smiled and said, the 6 of them do not receive wages from the county government. Man Bao frowned, can the magistrate do this? Isn't this raising private soldiers? Yes, Bai Shan said, the county magistrate has 10 places to guard private soldiers, and if they exceed it, they will be designated as servants and so on. Man Bao tooted his tongue and said, you are not very easy to get along with as a senior officer. Fang Xiancheng and the others must think so of you. Bai Shandao, I have a tender face, kindness is important, but majesty is also important. At this time, it is the busy time of spring. I have become familiar with the affairs of the county government in the past 2 days, and I will go to the countryside to persuade the farmers. If you go with people, we will incorporate our family's guards into the yamen, and then I will be easy to use people. Man Bao said almost immediately, I also want to go to the countryside. Bai Shan laughed, okay. At this time, people from all over the county government were also quietly discussing their new county magistrate. Several small officials gathered together and whispered, the county magistrate did not eat the public meal, but went home to eat. Nonsense, if there is such a beautiful lady waiting at home, I will also go home for dinner. Tisk tisk, didn't you see you yesterday, Our new magistrate's wife is so beautiful, that face. You're going to die, the magistrate's wife dares to arrange it, and that's Lord Joe. What, Mr. Joe, he said he was running a medical office, but he didn't come to our Bihai County to be a wife. Why would he go out to sunbathe in the back house? I think most of those rumors are false. The rumors can be false, can the official position be faked? This lady's official position is higher than that of the Bai County magistrate. In addition to being an order from the medical department, she is also an editor of the Chongquen Museum. It's strange to talk about this matter. Since she is an order from the Qingzhou Medical Bureau, shouldn't she stay in Qingzhou? Why did she come to our Bihai County? Some yamen came in from outside and heard them gossiping, so they immediately came up and whispered, "Do you know how many people the new magistrate brought this time?" An official who accompanied Bai County magistrate to him yesterday said, "There are no less than 10 guards alone. I counted 7 bare horses yesterday, and there are 4 mules and carriages. I can't tell what kind of housekeeper guards the family, but there are a total of 12 men, and the maids don't know how many, but yesterday afternoon, a girl went out and ordered 100 steamed buns at the entrance of Kinmen Street. Old Man Fei said that the steamed buns they ate last night and the dishes they cooked in the kitchen not only contained enough oil, but also meat. Old Man Fei doesn't know how many maids and wives there are. Hey, it's not that you don't know him. If you ask him what he ate last night, you can still say a word or two. When you ask those words, he doesn't answer a word. If you ask, you just shake your head and don't know. Where's MRS Xiao? Don't mention it, MRS Xiao doesn't care about shopping anymore. There are people in the yard who specialize in shopping. They are a servant. Unless MRS Xiao goes home, it will be difficult to come out. This is the big family. How can a big family come to our Bihai County to be the magistrate? Yes, it has been more than 20 years since Bihai County was changed to Qingzhou. All the magistrates who come to our Bihai County are not rich. You are too much in charge. Come on, stop talking, let the adults hear you later, and pay attention to your skin. A supervisor came in from the outside and saw so many people gathered together, he couldn't help but snorted to disperse the people. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2851. In the more spacious office room on the other side of the county office, there were also people discussing their new county magistrate, but there were only 3 people. The second, third, and fourth commanders of the county government, county magistrates and chief registrars. Yesterday, Master Song went to the countryside. No one was around. I only saw Bai Shan today and couldn't help but sigh, the county magistrate is really white. I don't know how long it will take to get a 10. As soon as these words came out, Lieutenant Dong Xian couldn't help but look at Fang Xiancheng. Fang Xianquan's expression remained the same. Without lifting his eyelids, he asked directly, "Is the account book for the magistrate ready?" "It's already ready. It's been prepared since the court made the new county magistrate. Bihai County is so big, how many accounts can be settled?" Song Master Clerk thought of something and smiled slightly. "Look at our Lord. When it comes to making pie, it's obvious that people don't care about these details, and people who buy gadgets in the capital may be worth our annual salary." Fang Xiancheng frowned slightly and said, "Don't talk nonsense, how can we arrange the county magistrate?" Master Song said, "There are only 3 of us in this room, and no one else will hear it. What's wrong with the discussion? As the saying goes, once the emperor and the courtier, we change the county magistrate, and naturally we have to act differently. It's still the same as before. What if Magistrate Bai doesn't like Magistrate Lu's style?" Fang Xianquan's brows were so wrinkled that he was about to catch a fly, and after holding back his anger, he said, "Just keep your heart." The master scoffed. Lieutenant Dong hurriedly smoothed things out between the 2 of them, and after calming down the atmosphere, he couldn't help but talk, but our new magistrate is really rich. You may not have seen it yesterday, but I did. Yes, the mule and horse-drawn luggage cart at the back is full of luggage. Isn't the luggage pulled on the luggage cart? Man, said Dong Xianwei confidently, my family only has 2 or 3 luggages when they travel. I don't think it's too much. The rest of the place is full of people. As a result, they pulled 2 cars with all their luggage. The boxes are stacked on top of the boxes, obviously they are loaded according to the maximum load, and I looked carefully, the boxes on the top are all good boxes, and there is luggage on the back of a car that pulls people. That's why we, the magistrate of Bai County, are rich. He smiled and said, I think when the magistrate Lu came to our Bihai County to take office, there was only 1 car and 2 servants. Although the madam came from behind, there were only 3 servants with him, with 2 children and luggage. It's only half a car. Seeing that Fang Xiancan's brows seemed to have a tendency to wrinkle, Master Song said with a slight smile, it's a pity that I'm younger, or else I'd be able to meet together to wait for a drink in the Chunlu, ha 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 ha. Lieutenant Dong Xian couldn't help laughing, what's wrong with that? Spring Breeze is a first-class young man. The county magistrate is the most popular among the girls in the building. Fang Xiancheng held his forehead with a headache, and simply got up and left. Wei Dong wanted to stop him, but was held back by the head clerk of Song. When the county magistrate left, he snorted coldly and said to Wei Dong, the county magistrate wants to meet all parties tonight, we will wait until after dinner. You can call the county magistrate to wait in Chunlu to play. Lieutenant Dong County, Master Bai is going to wait for the Chunlu. Who is the cheapest? Master Song thought of Bai Shan's face, really, who is prostituting who? Bai Shan only had his lunch just now, he gave Zhou Man a chopstick dish, and told her about the situation in the county government office. The county magistrate who came to Qinlu has only commented on 2 people with me, one is the county magistrate Fang, said he was upright and decent, and the other was Song Master. Bai Shan smiled when he said this, yesterday, the director of Song was not there, so you didn't see him. I met him today, and he looked very ordinary on the surface. The magistrate Lu said he was knowledgeable and interesting, and he was born in the Song family in Bihai County. It can generally be said that a certain family in a certain county is a famous local family, and the least power is not small. Just like the Zhou family, when people mention it, they will only refer to the Zhou family in Qilai village, not just the old Zhutu family, but the entire village with the surname Zhou. Because before, the Zhou family could only talk about it in the village, even if it was placed in the village, they had never heard of it. Man Bao asked, Tet mentioned his background. Could it be that he is still related to his family's power when he became the master? Bai Shandao, it will be somewhat related, but I turned over some accounts and records of the household today, and some of the recent ones are still okay. It's not a wine bag to see the face, and it must be capable. For the county magistrate Bai Shan, he doesn't care how the other party was in power before, what he cares about is whether he can do things. After lunch, the 2 rested for a while. Bai Shan continued to go to work in the county Yalai, while Man Bao walked out with Daji and Zibing. Zibing still wanted to get a car, but when he saw that Daji didn't move, he looked at Zhou Man, and Zhou Man said, what kind of car is there? Yesterday, I saw that the county seat of Bihai County is about the same size as our county seat of Lujian County. You can just walk around with your feet. Dagi thought so. So the 3 of them went to play, no, to buy things. Today is not a market. There are vendors on the street, but not many and fewer pedestrians. After walking around for a while, Man Bao realized, it's the busy farming season. Daji nodded. No wonder there are so few people. Man Bao was relieved, otherwise it would be too difficult for Bai Shan to manage the county well. Man Bao strolled around, not only at the small stalls on the street, she almost entered every store, and bought what she needed when she saw it. The store owner saw that she had a new face, and the Mandarin she spoke was somewhat different from theirs, so they knew that she was from other places, but she didn't know if she came with a merchant or a traveler. With a very beautiful girl, I couldn't help but raise the price. Man Bao sighed regretfully and didn't buy it. After turning around and going out, he said to Daji Zibing, "It's a pity that the store is rushing customers, otherwise we can still buy it." It was not loud, but the people in the store must have heard it. Daji. He glanced at the narrow Joe man and said nothing. Man Bao left the confused shopkeeper in the store, changed to the next one with a cheerful expression, and went to the pharmacy after wandering around. Man Bao looked up at the plaque of the pharmacy Renhitang. Man Bao had heard of it, and had met with the doctor of Renhitang in the capital, and discussed the disease, but he had not been to Renhitang. Look at another pharmacy 2 stores away. Hey, this one looks familiar, Bai Kaitang. She is familiar, just across from the Jishatang in their capital. They go early in the morning, and the doctors on both sides can still sit face to face with a bowl of wontons sitting in front of the store and eat them. Man Bao raised his feet and went in with a smile. The apprentice who greeted her froze when they saw her, not because he recognized Joe Man, but because he greeted so many people every day, went to the pharmacy with a smile, and smiled so happily. He seemed to have seen this before. Once. This is really a long experience. The apprentice thought to himself, and stepped forward with a smile on his face. What would the guest officer want? Is it a consultation or a prescription? See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2852. Man Bao swept around the lobby, and there were only 2 patients who were taking medicines, which was very different from the Jishatang in the capital, which was always full of people. However, she had expected such a situation before entering the door. After all, it was a busy farming season, and Jishatang in Lujiang County had few patients during the busy farming season, but every year after the busy farming season, the most patients came to the door. It's winter and spring. Man Bao said, "I'll ask the doctor." The apprentice led her to see the doctor. There was only one sitting doctor in the pharmacy. When he saw Joe Man, he stretched out his hand to let her sit down, looked at her face and asked, "Ask what?" Man Bao was stuck for a while. The doctor glanced at her hairstyle and said, "Put out your hand, I'll take a look." Man Bao stretched out his hand to give him a pulse. The doctor touched the left and right sides, and then said to Joe Man, "The false fire is a little strong, other than that there is no problem." Man Bao thought for a while. She had been on the road all this time. She drank little water and had almost no vegetables in her diet. Most of the dried vegetables and meat that her sister-in-law had dried were steamed, boiled and fried. It was indeed easy to get angry, so she nodded and asked, "Can I get a prescription? It's not a serious illness. I'll give you a refreshing drink. You can go back and drink 2 pairs." The doctor said so, but he didn't start writing the prescription, but looked at Joe Man and asked, "Is the madam asking for a child?" When Man Bao, who was about to get up, heard it, he sat down and nodded again and again, "Can I ask?" The doctor stroked his beard and said, "Yes." He carefully asked Joe Man's diet and rest, then he picked up a brush to write down 2 prescriptions, and handed it to the apprentice beside him. "Let's grab 2 first." Man Bao glanced at the prescription in the apprentice's hand. He didn't see the specific herbs on the prescription, but it didn't prevent him from asking, "Which one should I take first?" "Drink the fire first, and then drink this pair of begging soup after 2 days." Man Bao, it turns out that this is begging soup. "That's right," the doctor said confidently, "my recipe is from the ancestors, and it has cured many people." So Man Bao curiously stretched out his hand and said, "Can I take a look?" The apprentice looked at the doctor. The doctor nodded, and then showed the prescription to Joe Man. Man Bao had seen both of them. Seeing that the apprentice kept looking at her, he handed him the prescription and asked curiously, "Aren't the prescriptions from your pharmacy available?" "The prescription is precious, how can I give it?" the doctor explained after finishing speaking. "This is also for the benefit of the patient, otherwise the patient will take the prescription and the next time he falls ill, he will grab the medicine with the prescription without looking for the doctor." Even coughs can be divided into many types: cold coughs, hot coughs, and lung coughs. Don't think that we are doctors to earn more than a few pennies for the diagnosis. We are afraid that you will randomly pick up medicines. Mistake yourself. Man Bao nodded, indicating that he understood. "Then follow the apprentice to get medicine." Zibing was stunned. "Miss, are you really caught?" The apprentice looked at them when he heard the words, "Aren't you taking medicine?" Man Bao nodded again and again, "Catch, catch." When the medicine boy on the medicine cabinet grabbed the medicine, Man Bao paid the consultation fee and the medicine fee together, then handed the medicine to Zibing, went out happily, and then went straight to the next door to the Baikatang. Zibing followed with a tangled face. 2 quarters later, Man Bao brought out 2 more medicines. The apprentices of 100 Herbs Hall watched them leave with smiles on their faces. At first, they came to the door with their medicine bags. He thought they were here to smash the place, but it turned out that they came to see a doctor. After leaving the pharmacy, Man Bao took the medicine bag in his hand to the cake. Zibing asked with a tangled face, "Miss, what should I do with this medicine?" "I went back to cook and eat," Man Bao said. "I went back and added a little more mint, and I cooked a big pot to share with everyone. I was also negligent. Traveling is easy to get angry. Recently, we have few guests and we have dried vegetables outside. Bacon is served with rice, and there is little water, so it's easy to get angry." Zibing asked the medicine bag in his left hand, "What about these 4 medicines?" Man Bao said, "Didn't you and May have a bad menstrual period? I'll pick out some medicines later, I'll give you some more, and take a few to see the effect." When the street said this, Zibing said uncomfortably, "I've gotten better in the past 2 years." Man Bao nodded, "But you still have to pay more attention. Anyway, the medicine has been caught. You should eat some to consolidate it." The group of 3 walked down the street, and after walking out of the street, they went to the side alley for a walk. These are basically residential areas. The further you go to the edge, the smaller, shorter, and louder the house becomes. Man Bao didn't know the direction, so she just walked around like this. Daji gave her directions to change the alley and walked back. If she came across a road she didn't know, she would ask someone. Just wandering around like this, Daji frowned and said, "Miss, the front is too messy, let's change back. There is only one alley here. If you don't go forward, you can only find a fork in the back and continue." Man Bao asked, "What's wrong?" The voice just fell, and a door in front of them opened, and a basin of water was poured from it, and it was poured directly on the opposite door. The rotten leaves and sediment in the water also hung on the door that was not too big on the opposite side. Man Bao opened his mouth wide and was about to speak when the door opposite opened with a bang. Seeing that his own door had become like this, he was so angry that he directly aimed at the opposite door and kicked it open and shouted loudly. Said, "It's dead, who killed 1,000 knives and poured mud on my door? Do you really think that my man is not at home and you will bully me? Who dares to bully you? I only saw you kick the door of my house." The person inside also replied rudely, and rushed out to push the opposite door to go out. As a result, she was thinner and smaller than the fat door. He didn't push it out for a couple of times, but was pushed back and staggered. Simply push and shove with people, while pointing fingers at each other and scolding. Not to be outdone by the door, the 2 of them spit fragrance at each other. Although it was a dialect, most of Man Bao didn't understand it, but based on some vague words and their expressions, she also knew that it was not a good word. Man Bao swallowed his saliva and said in a low voice, "Miss, let's go." Zibing nodded again and again. Manbao glanced at the stagnant water on the ground, nodded, picked up his skirt and carefully walked across the wet road. Just as Manbao walked over, put down his skirt and was about to breathe a sigh of relief and leave with Daji and the others, the two who were fighting had reached the stage of intense heat. He slammed into the opposite door, trying to push her out. The opposite door was bumped, and he was obviously angry, so he stretched out his hand and pushed it hard, but he pushed the person to the ground. When Manbao tilted her head, she only saw the moment when she fell, but at that moment she realized something was wrong. The person fell heavily to the ground, and only now did Manbao see that her belly was a little bigger under her white clothes. She widened her eyes, and the person who fell on the ground also screamed, hugging her stomach and shouting, "Ah, my stomach, murdered, murdered, come and see, the Guo family's murder already." See you at 9. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2853. This shout called out all the people hiding in the room, and saw an old woman rushing out of the yard. With just one glance, she sat on the ground and patted her thighs and said, a sin, my grandson, Guo family, you compensate my grandson." Facing the door with a pale face, he took a step back and saw that the neighbors were running out to watch the fun, and immediately said, "She pushed me and then fell unsteadily, so don't do my business." Manbao saw that the pregnant woman's mother-in-law just sat on the ground and patted her thighs. The face of the pregnant woman who fell on the ground was getting paler and paler, and a pool of blood was dizzy on the ground. She couldn't help but calm her face and went straight in to touch at her stomach and pulse condition, and then rushed to the still noisy people. "She is about to give birth, first carry the person into the room." The neighbors who were watching then came back to their senses and ran in one after another, persuading the mother-in-law and the opposite door who were still arguing to stop. "Guo's family, carry people into the house first, if there is something wrong with the wealthy family, even if you don't push it. It's because of a fight with you, can your family get rid of it?" The neighbor who said this was an old woman, with a capable face and obviously some prestige. After finishing speaking, she went to the door and said to the pregnant mother-in-law, "De Fu Niang, look at your daughter-in-law's face, do you still want to sit on the ground and make trouble? If she is really good or bad, your family still has money to marry a daughter-in-law for Defu." When the rich lady heard this, she stopped sitting and patted her thighs, got up and followed everyone to carry the rich family into the house. The old woman said, "It has to be called Granny Wen." De Fu Niang wiped her tears and said, "The family is so poor that only water is left, where can I find money and ask for Mother Wen?" The old woman couldn't help but said angrily, "Then watch your daughter-in-law bleed to death." De Fu Niang grabbed the Guo family who was moving back, and said angrily, "It was you who pushed my daughter-in-law, I saw it all." "No, no." Manbao frowned, keeping his hand on the pulse of the pregnant woman, turned his head and said, "I will deliver the baby, go to the kitchen to boil water, and prepare some clean linen." The rich lady quickly said, "My family is poor, how can I have clean linen?" Manbao ignored her, took out a packet of needles from his sleeve pocket, unbuttoned the pregnant woman's clothes, and said to the cake, "She is having a difficult childbirth and needs a drug to induce birth. You ask Daji to find the doctor at Baikatang, tell him that to induce birth, nourish qi and blood, and stop bleeding. If there are ready-made pills, let him bring the medicine box over immediately, and I will dispense the medicine when he arrives here." Zibing turned around and went out to find Daji. The rich lady was anxious. "Who is the lady? My family doesn't know you, and my family has no money to buy medicinal materials." Manbao untied the pregnant woman's clothes and went down 3 needles to temporarily slow down the bleeding. Then she turned to look at De Fu Niang and said, "Your daughter-in-law is going to die. After saying that, she turned to the side to let her see the blood on the bed. With just these few words, the thin quilt on the bed was already dyed. This time, all those who were still talking all stopped their mouths, stunned. Look at the bed of blood. Only then did they realize that the rich family had been silent for a long time, and when they looked again, they could see no blood on her face. At this time, they were lying on the bed and looking at them with fear. Only then did De Fu Niang realize that the matter was beyond her control. She was terrified and couldn't help clapping her thighs and crying, "Old everyone, it's terrible, how can I explain to De Fu like this?" Zhou Man couldn't help drinking to stop her, and said sternly, "Why are you crying at this time, why don't you go and boil hot water soon?" The rich lady came back to her senses, and hurriedly turned around and went out to boil water. Man Bao swept around, ordered the old woman and two women, and asked them to stay to help, and then said with a sullen face, "Everyone else goes out for me." Everyone was so frightened, they all withdrew, and only returned to their senses when they reached the courtyard. "Whose lady is this? I haven't seen it before. I saw the clothes on her body, and the embroidery, but it's beautiful. It doesn't look like she lives in our area. She will deliver." Zibing passed by them, snorted and pushed the door in. Inside the house, the old lady also looked at Zhou Man with some suspicion. Could the lady deliver the baby? Zhou Man nodded and asked someone to remove the pregnant woman's trousers. She squeezed the needle and gave her 4 more needles. Seeing the pregnant woman trembling, she said, "This is for pain relief." Seeing her relax, Zhou Man touched her stomach and frowned. "How many months have you been?" She whispered, 7 months. Man Bao pursed his lips slightly and asked, "What is the first child?" "The third child." Although it was the third child, Man Bao still couldn't relax at all, because after touching it, she found that the fetus was standing upright, that is to say, the fetal position was reversed. She glanced at the pregnant woman, rolled up her sleeves, took off the jade bracelet in her hand and handed it to the cake, and said, "Tell the kitchen to bring hot water quickly." She moved her fingers back and forth and started finger exercises. Just as she was about to tell the pregnant woman her fetal position, she heard sobbing from the other side of the table. Everyone turned their heads and looked over, and saw a little girl about 2 years old sitting under the table, was pushing away the stool and crawling out while crying. There was a smaller child sitting behind her, and she was looking at them blankly at this time. Maybe she saw her sister crying. She couldn't help but pursed her mouth and wanted to cry. Seeing these two children, Man Bao turned around with a stiff neck and asked the pregnant woman, "This is your birth?" The pregnant woman nodded, a little anxious. "Big girl, why are you here? Take your sister out." Man Bao asked blankly, "How old is your little daughter?" The pregnant woman was looked at seriously by her, and she felt a little guilty for some reason, and said, "It's 2 years old. I asked about the birthday." The pregnant woman whispered, 1 year and 2 months. Man Bao pursed his lips, "What about your eldest daughter?" 2 years and 6 months. Man Bao's chest rose and fell sharply, and then slowly smoothed out. She forced a smile to the other side, turned around and hugged the 2 children under the table, then opened her purse with snacks and gave them to them. "You guys take it and eat it, your mother is going to give birth to younger brothers and sisters for you, so be good." After that, he took the child out and put it in the yard. De Fu Niang brought hot water over to see it, and couldn't help scolding the 2 children, crawling around all day long. "Who asked you to come here? Get out quickly." Man Bao glanced at the other party, put the child in the yard, beckoned for Zibing, and whispered, "Go back and tell Bai Shan, and let him bring someone over." Although Zibing was puzzled, he still nodded, just a little worried. "The lady is here alone." "Don't worry, pregnant women can't give birth for a while." "What about dystocia? And it is still a dystocia that has not yet reached the day, and you have to take the medicine to induce birth. How can it be so fast?" It's really not fast. Although she fell down and moved the fetal gas, there was no sign of giving birth at all, but Man Bao felt the pulse. If the child was not born, he would not be able to save it. There is even a great chance of bleeding to death. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2854. Daji pulled the doctor from Baikatang to take a look, and the doctor said directly, "How can this be saved? It can only be born, it is best to be born, and it cannot be born. That is one corpse and two lives." Man Bao on the side said directly, "The fetal position is reversed." The doctor shook his head and said to the rich lady, "That won't work. Childbirth is a gate of hell, and if the fetal position is not correct, 90% of the body is in the gate of hell. At this time, it is less than a month old and bleeding from a fall. How can people save it?" The doctor turned around and wanted to leave, but Joe Man grabbed him and said, "You leave the medicine box." Then he asked, "What medicine did you bring? Are there any pills for Chi?" The doctor recognized Joe Man, held down the medicine box and said, "Miss, I won't pay for the consultation this time, but the medicine." De Fu Niang was still immersed in the bad news that her daughter-in-law would not be able to do so. She immediately said, "My family has no money." Man Bao gritted his teeth and said, "I have." Daji has already taken down his purse and weighed it against the doctor. "We will pay." Only then did the doctor open the medicine box and let them see the medicine he brought, and said, "I didn't bring the pills because there was no more in the store." Although he knew that this patient could not be saved, he did his best to obey the destiny, so he didn't write any ink. He opened the medicine bag he brought and said, "I have to take the medicine that induces birth first. Fortunately these medicines are ready when I come." Man Bao took the medicine bag and smelled it. After distinguishing the medicine inside, he picked it out blindly, then opened the other medicines that were individually wrapped, and put 3 fingers into it. The doctor couldn't help but let out hey when he saw it, and reached out his hand to stop her. Man Bao had already handed over the medicine to De Fu Niang, saying, "Go and boil the medicine, I'll pay for the medicine, boil it well, boil it fast, maybe you can keep a daughter-in-law, otherwise you can only prepare another betrothal gift for your son." As soon as the rich lady heard this, she didn't dare to delay any longer and ran to the kitchen with the herbs in her arms. The doctor couldn't stop it, but when she saw that she began to pick out the medicines in the medicine box skillfully again, she realized that she knew medicine, even medicine. Thinking of the tonic he only prescribed today. "Doctor." Man Bao grabbed 2 more sets of medicines, marked them with different marks, and turned around and handed them over to Daji. "Go and boil the medicines, this one is number 1, and this one is number 2. Good luck." The doctor's brows twitched, and he couldn't help but glanced at Joe Man quietly, seeing that everyone was being instructed by her to move around, and there was no one around, so he leaned over and whispered, "It's an abortion at this time, and it will be difficult for the mother to survive." She was talking about the number 2 medicine that she prescribed, which is a life-saving medicine for abortion. Although the doctor knew that he would rarely use it, he also brought it with him, so that the patient's family could choose whether to protect the elderly or the young. Man Bao said, "Try it, after the abortion, as long as the stillbirth is taken out smoothly and the bleeding is stopped." Is it so easy for her to stop the bleeding in this situation? Man Bao also knew that, so he sighed, "Do your best and listen to the destiny." She turned around to enter the room, and before entering, she said to the doctor, "Maybe you will also use the things in your medicine cabinet, so please wait here." The doctor thought that he had just cheated on someone not long ago, and nodded embarrassedly. "It's easy to say, easy to say." When they entered, they began to think, "Whose girl is this? She looks good in medicine." From outside, is it someone who is going to open a drug store in their Bihai County? Man Bao went in to check on the mother's condition. At this time, her lower back was raised, and the blood had basically stopped, but she could still feel the flow of life. She was terrified and held the old woman tightly with one hand. When she saw Zhou Man coming in, she looked at her expectantly and said, "Miss, what does the doctor say?" I. Man Bao said solemnly, "It can be saved, you have to listen to me and the doctor. If you are forced to work hard, then you will work hard, and if you are quiet, then you will be quiet." The rich lady was relieved to hear the words, and nodded again and again, "I will listen to you, I will listen to you." The momentum of the previous quarrel was completely lost. But she was still worried. After all, Zhou Man was a stranger after all, and she looked at Yuyuki. She grabbed the old woman's hand and couldn't help but ask her, "Mother Jin, am I really okay?" Grandma Jin glanced at Zhou Man and sighed in her heart, but said with a smile on her face, "It's okay, it's okay." She patted her hand to reassure her and said, "I also heard what the doctor said. You can give birth after drinking the medicine in a while. You can take a break now." The two women on the side did not have such a good concentration, apparently they heard the doctor's diagnosis just now. They don't want to stay in this house anymore. The rich family is like this, and they will die if they turn around. They don't talk about their bad luck in the house, and they may get into trouble. The rich and the rich mother are not too unreasonable. So they looked left and right and each made an excuse. "I'll go to the kitchen to see the medicine. I'll show you the big girl and the second girl." The two ran away. The rich lady didn't have the energy to think. Now she is holding onto Granny Jin's driftwood like a drowning person, trying to float up from the water, but she doesn't pay attention to the person beside her. In such silence, Man Bao rubbed her stomach all over, and thoughtfully poked her body with a needle. She couldn't help convulsing for a while, and her stomach, which had been in pain since the fall, but had no movement, moved, and she stared at Zhou Man with wide eyes. Zhou Man's eyes lit up, knowing that her needle had worked. She held her down and said softly, "Don't move, I'll let you move later," and you move again. Zhou Man's little hand gently slid on her stomach, and when it slipped to a point, she pushed it gently, but it could make the mother feel pain. After doing this several times, the child in her stomach moved again. After an unknown amount of time, Man Bao frowned and stopped. "It's too late, it's been 7 months, it's not very likely to correct the fetal position at this time, it's already the limit to let him move a few times, and I don't know what the condition of the umbilical cord is, if it is around the neck." Man Bao returned to his senses and said to the mother, "It's all right, just lie down and don't move." After the medicine for induction of labor was boiled, De Fu Niang brought the medicine in, and Man Bao took the medicine. Seeing that the needles on her body had been pulled out, she gave her medicine. When she takes the medicine, she will use the needle to speed up the effect of the medicine. The rich family felt the pain and couldn't help screaming. Man Bao held her down and said, "Don't scream, keep your strength, come, follow me to breathe first." Because the fetus was still in the correct position, Man Bao did not ask her to exert herself, but adjusted her breathing and waited for the opening of the cervix. She is not the first child, the body has its own memory, plus the induction medicine, the cervix opens very quickly, and Man Bao, who has already prepared, reaches out to adjust the fetal position for her. Not to mention the rich lady on the side, even Grandma Jin's eyes widened, and she almost couldn't help but scream. Seeing Zhou Man pulling out his bloody hand, the rich girl rolled her eyes and fell to the ground softly. She felt that her daughter-in-law was going to fail. Although she was useless, she couldn't even give birth to a son, but she took all the money to marry her. If she was gone, his son would not be able to marry another one, unless... The rich lady looked up at her house and felt that the sky was falling. See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2855. Man Bao calmly said to the mother, "Now let's take a deep breath and gather strength, we will strive to give birth to the child quickly." She was bleeding, and not slowly. Man Bao could only give her 2 hemostatic needles while letting her build up her strength. The mother has already given birth to 2 fetuses, and her body has suffered severe losses, but also, the fetus is not big, and it is only 7 months old. After the cervix is opened, it only takes 3 full cycles to see the head. So she cheered and waited with her hands underneath, and said, "It's still a little bit worse, take a deep breath, take a little longer, take a little longer, okay, hold your breath, and force." Man Bao caught the child at once. A child only a little bigger than her 2 palms, she held him with both hands, and her palms felt a little trembling. After Man Bao glanced down, he quickly cleaned the filth on his nose and mouth, and then touched his heart with his fingertips. Grandma Jing came over and was shocked, "Damn, this blood can't stop." The rich lady Zhou Man was still holding the child and didn't deal with the maternity, so she couldn't help being shocked. "Miss, don't worry about that little girl's film, come and stop the bleeding for my daughter-in-law, or else, why don't you call the doctor?" Man Bao turned around and glanced at her, pursed his lips, took scissors and cut the umbilical cord, then handed the child to Granny Jin, "Wash it clean and wrap it up." Then she went to stop the bleeding for the rich lady. She rushed outside and said, "Bring the number 1 medicine." Zibing brought the medicine in. Man Bao saw her eyes paused, Zibing nodded slightly, gave the medicine to Zhou Manho and said, "Master Lang is waiting for you at the entrance of the alley." Man Bao nodded and poured the cold medicine into the mother. It was already 2/4 of an hour after the bleeding stopped. Granny Jing carefully washed and wrapped the baby and gave it to the rich lady who was working on Zhou Man. "Let's take a look." De Fu Niang just glanced at it and sighed, "This child is too young, it is estimated that he can't support him." This time Zhou Man and Granny Jin didn't say anything to refute, but Granny Jin looked like she was hesitant to say anything. Zhou Man glanced at Granny Jin and said, "If you have something to say, go out and talk." Granny Jin hugged the child and said to De Fu Niang, let's go out and talk." De Fu Niang thought they were daughters-in-law who were worried about the bed. Although they had expected this result, they went out. Granny Jin carefully raised the swaddling clothes a little higher, so as not to let the wind blow to the child. She hurriedly entered the main room when she got outside. The people who were guarding outside quickly followed and asked, "Have you been born? Are you all right from the rich family?" The rich lady had already passed out. At this time, only Zhou Man and Zibing stood by the bed and looked at her, and she still had a lot of needles. Zibing said in a low voice, "Miss, it's getting dark, and the master is still waiting outside." Man Bao said, "When she stops bleeding, that De Fu will come back and we will leave." Just as she finished speaking, there was a wailing from outside, followed by a burst of crying. Man Bao heard the sound of someone running over, and then stopped abruptly. Granny Jing carried the child into the lobby, and when she saw so many people surrounding her, she sighed and said, "That kind lady is still saving the rich family. The rich lady, take a look at the child." De Fu Niang didn't want to look at it, so she said, "Don't look at it, this child won't survive. When De Fu comes back, let him take it out and find a place to bury it." Then he looked at the opposite door in the crowd like a knife, and said loudly, "Guo family, my daughter-in-law was born prematurely because of you, and my granddaughter was also killed by you. You have to pay me." Grandma Jin, still holding the child, interrupted, "This is a boy." De Fu Niang's voice stopped at once, and the noise of the crowd also stopped, and everyone looked at Granny Jin blankly. The rich girl turned to look at her with a stiff neck, and asked uncertainly, What did you say?" "This is a boy," Grandma Jin emphasized while holding the child. "It's too late, let's take a look." The rich lady didn't pick up the child, but shook her hands and opened the swaddling clothes. Grandma Jin frowned, but said nothing. When she saw that this was really a boy, De Fu Niang's eyes darkened. After staggering twice, she couldn't help crying, and cried, my grandson. She turned around and ran out, ignoring the Guo family who was also stunned. When she ran to the yard, she was about to rush in to find Zhou Man, but she saw the doctor first, so she grabbed him with one hand and dragged him to the main room vigorously. Look doctor, look at my grandson, save him quickly. The doctor glanced at the child and shook his head in his heart. After rubbing his chest and abdomen with his fingertips, he shook his head and sighed, no, the child is too young, the heart has not grown well, let the family members let's take a look. No, you have to save my grandson, this is my grandson, it's my grandson. Seeing that the doctor refused to treat him, De Fu Niang ran out a little frantically. She wanted to find Zhou Man. Although she didn't know who Zhou Man was, after so long, she also knew that he was very powerful. Since she can save her daughter-in-law, maybe she can also save the child. As a result, she ran out and bumped into someone, and the master of the house, Defu, came back. Mother, Big Peanut? What happened? Defu, save your son quickly. The eldest daughter-in-law of the Guo family who killed 1,000 knives at the door pushed your daughter-in-law to the ground. She bleeds a lot and gave birth prematurely. De Fu Niang wiped her tears and said, your son, the doctor said that he can't be saved. De Fu's face turned pale, and he went to see the child first. Man Bao in the room listened to the noise and crying outside, glanced at the uneasy parturient on the bed, reached out and took out 2 needles to prick the side of her neck, and then slowly pierced it, which was originally the parturients who showed signs of waking fell into a drowsy sleep, breathing lightly. Zibing glanced at it and asked in a low voice, Miss, is the child really helpless? Man Bao nodded, it's too small, and when it's in the stomach, it doesn't have enough nutrition, so the internal organs have not grown well and can't be saved. She felt that the baby was too young, not the same as the premature babies she had delivered before. Although they were born prematurely, they were well raised in the womb. Although they were small when they were born, they should all grown up. This one is different. At that time, she felt bad when she touched his chest and abdomen, and also paid points for Keek to scan it. Unless Keek said, the gestational sac in their world can put the child back, and the gestational sac imitates the mother to provide him with nourishment again, allowing him to continue to develop. Just as they were talking, De Fu and De Fu Niang ran in with their children, followed by a group of people. Man Bao frowned and rushed people unceremoniously. What are so many people doing here? The mother is bleeding profusely, so many of you are dirty, what if you pollute the mother? See you at 9. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2856. Man Bao could drive the others out, but couldn't drive away the Defu mother and son, so she simply kept Granny Jin behind, and then looked at them. De Fu Niang pulled De Fu to kneel at Zhou Man, kowtowed and said, Ma'am, please save my grandson. Zhou Man looked at them condescendingly, and then glanced at the child in their arms. At this time, the child's face had turned blue, and Man Bao reached out and touched it and said, I can't save it. It's impossible, how do you know if you can't be saved? Man Bao said, he didn't grow well in the womb. His mother couldn't eat well, was not full, was malnourished, and even less nutrition passed to him. Look at him now, his limbs are sound, but his insides are incomplete, Man Bao said, his heart and lungs are not growing well, he was born in 7 months, 3 months less than other normal children, and more besides, he didn't have enough nutrition in the womb, do you think he can live? De Fu Niang was anxious, didn't you say that you are not alive? Zhou Man, it's just a fallacy. When the rich girl saw Zhou Man, she refused to do anything, and the child was already cold, so she knew that she couldn't be saved. She sat down on the ground in a state of collapse, patted her thigh and cried, a sin, everything is wrong. Said that this child is still a girl, who can know that it is a grandson. De Fu Niang was really sad, her tears and snot flowing out. She howled and remembered something, grabbed De Fu who had been crying with the child in her arms and said, it's from the Guo family, it's the Guo family who killed my grandson, if she hadn't pushed her daughter-in-law. When De Fu heard this, he shoved the child in his arms into his mother's arms, got up with a look of suffocation, turned around and went out. Grandma Jin was surprised when she saw it, and said quickly, where are you going? De Fu, don't be impulsive. De Fu had already rushed into the kitchen, grabbed the kitchen knife and rushed out, his eyes red and swept across the yard. The neighbors were startled by him, and ran out one after another, shouting, De Fu, you don't think about it. The Guo family in the crowd was also startled, turned around and ran out. De Fu also saw her and ran to her with a knife in hand. The people from the Guo family on the opposite side also came back, but except for Mrs. Diao, the eldest daughter-in-law of the Guo family, none of them went to the opposite side. At this time, when Mrs. Diao heard the cries for help, Guo Dalan couldn't hold back and ran away with the bowl. Come out, apparently just had a meal. Just as he opened the door, he was bumped by Mr. Diao. He was about to reprimand, when he looked up, he met De Fu Tong's red eyes and the kitchen knife in his hand. De Fu doesn't care who he is, as long as it's the Guo family, so he raises his hand and slashes at him. With an ah sound, Guo Dalan rolled over to avoid the knife, and then crawled and rolled to the side. He had already arrived at the entrance of the alley, and naturally Bai Shan, who knew the situation here, heard the shouting and immediately led someone out of a house. He saw the rich man who was slashing everywhere with a knife, but he didn't hit anyone with a single knife. Immediately said, take the person down. The two yeomen who followed Bai Shan here to work overtime were stunned. They rushed forward, took the scabbard and knocked down the kitchen knife in his hand, and only then did they hold him down. De Fu roared, let me go, they killed my son, I'm going to kill them, I'm going to kill them. Bai Shan had already learned about what happened from his neighbors and Daji, and learned more things. He paced forward, looked down at De Fu for a while, then turned to look at Guo Dalan, who was so scared that he wet his pants, and waved, if there is a dispute, then go to the yamen and talk. A yamen was stunned for a moment, and immediately said, sir, now the yamen has been dispatched. Then what's the point? Take the person back first and try again tomorrow. The yamen hesitated, is this bad? They didn't do anything. Didn't he just say that he thinks that the Guo family killed his son? If that's the case, then there is a case of human life involved. Take them back. Bai Shan was referring to Guo Dalan and the Diao family. The people of the Guo family were suddenly shocked, and they all gathered around and said, you are wronged, his daughter-in-law has a miscarriage, what are you doing to our family? Sir, our family are all good people. If you don't believe me, ask our chief. Seeing that the two yamen did not move, Bai Shan waved to the guards behind him, and the guards immediately stepped forward to arrest them. When old man Guo and Mrs. Guo saw that their son and daughter-in-law were about to be taken away, they immediately stepped forward and bit them. Bai Shan said lightly, anyone who resists arrest will be taken to jail. As soon as these words came out, the Guo family didn't dare to move. No one wants to go against the officers and soldiers. If they all go in, the house will be broken. It's easy to get in, but hard to get out. Seeing that Guo Dalan and his wife were locked up, Bai Shan looked down at the detained De Fu, and waved, drag the person to the opposite side and let him see his daughter-in-law for the last time. De Fu was stunned when he heard this, and asked tremblingly, what do you mean by seeing the last time? Bai Shan smiled at him and said, at the end of this evening, you slashed people with a knife, thinking this is the end. Go to the prison together. The two yamen who pressed him, they are so fierce, they want the plaintiff and the defendant to eat together. De Fu was dragged to the opposite side with a dumbfounded expression, and De Fu Niang was at a loss with the dead baby in his arms. What can I do, what can I do? Grandma Jin supported her and said, don't worry, De Fu didn't kill anyone, just admit your mistake and maybe it's over. The rich lady cried, is this prison so easy to get in and out of? If you go in, if you come out again, I'm afraid that the family will go bankrupt. His daughter-in-law is still lying on the bed. It's too late for the rich lady to regret, I knew I wouldn't tell him that Guo's family is not in front of him. De Fu was allowed to go in to see his daughter-in-law. Man Bao looked at the mother's condition, took the needle from her neck, and pulled out the needle from her body. After feeling the pulse, he got up and moved aside, seeing him as a mourning concubine. When he came in, he pointed to the blood sheet in the corner and said, I was about to tell you, bring a clean set in. De Fu was stunned when he saw those bloody faces. There is so much blood, my lady, is she all right? Man Bao said, I've done my best, so I'm not sure if I can survive. De Fu was taken aback. He didn't expect it to be so serious. He had already died of his son, and he didn't want to die again. He quickly said, please save my wife. Man Bao said, I'll leave a medicine for her, and I'll talk about it when she wakes up tomorrow. The medicine was picked up from the medicine box brought by the doctor. She handed the medicine bag to the rich lady who had been holding the dead baby and refused to put it down, and said, the medicine is boiled. If she wakes up in the middle, give it to her. De Fu knelt in front of the bed and cried for a while, and the yamen outside kept urging him, so he had to come out. The rich lady couldn't cry, so she could only knelt down to Bai Shan and begged for mercy, sir, please forgive him, he also sees his daughter-in-law like this, and it's irrational. Bai Shandao, so I gave him space and time to wake him up. If such a person stays outside, unless he sends someone to guard the Guo family day and night, who knows if there will be a massacre. So let's go somewhere safe. See you tomorrow. I still can't add updates these days, because I have to save the manuscript to attend the annual meeting, and I will start adding updates when I come back from the annual meeting. Wow, I am so excited when I think about it. From next month, I can add this book without distractions. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2857. Bai Shan asked De Fu to be taken away, but De Fu Niang could only sit on the ground, crying and watching the yamen escort De Fu away. The neighbors onlookers sighed and cautiously glanced at Bai Shan, who was standing in the yard. Seeing that although he had a straight face, he did not scold the rich lady, so they tentatively took 2 steps forward. Seeing that he didn't respond, he carefully stepped forward to support the rich lady, and comforted her in a low voice, don't cry, it's still important to live, the rich family doesn't know what's going on. The rich girl cried even louder. Man Bao found the 2 children who had been forgotten in the corner, huddled into a ball of fear, picked them up and handed them over to Granny Jin, please help my mother to take care of them for 2 days. Granny Jin glanced at the rich lady who was still sitting on the ground crying, took the child with a sigh, and responded. The doctor, who hid aside and watched the excitement of the audience, withdrew his gaze, seeing Joe Man standing by and talking to Granny Jin. He leaned over and wanted to ask her how she saved the mother's life in this situation. To be honest, it is difficult to give birth when the fetus is in an upside-down position, and then falls and bleeds a lot. In this case, blood metrorrhagia is basically the first birth, and in the end the child bleeds and dies first is the most common situation. So he was curious, what method did she use to stop the bleeding first, and then let the mother give birth to the child so quickly? I'm just a little embarrassed. I only cheated people in the afternoon. No, he's not a cheater, right? The tonic he prescribed was right. The doctor just came up, and just as he was about to speak, Bai Shan also came up. Although everyone didn't talk to Bai Shan, they kept their eyes on him quietly. After all, it was an official's job, so it was impossible not to watch. Bai Shan walked towards Zhou Man and asked, "Are you ready? Do you want to go home?" Man Bao nodded, "Okay, let's go." As soon as the doctor stayed, the people in the yard were also stunned. They didn't react until the two of them walked out of the yard, but no one dared to call Zhou Man again, so they could only watch Zhou Man and Bai Shan leave side by side. Neighbors reacted after they left, and they surrounded the rich lady and said, "It turns out that the official messenger was recruited by this lady." For a while, I didn't know whether to praise her good luck or sympathize with her. Although this lady saved the wealthy family, she also put the wealthy in jail. De Funiang only felt that this day was like a dream. Her face was dull at the moment, and she couldn't even perform basic actions like crying. The doctor is not these ignorant women. As a doctor in a pharmacy, although he does not have much power, he is definitely better informed than these women. He quickly guessed the identity of the white-faced official and the lady who made an unusual move. For a while, my heart was like hot oil, and I couldn't stay there any longer, so I left with the medicine box. He trotted all the way back to the 100 Herbs Hall. The 100 Herbs Hall was closed. He didn't care. He knocked on the door directly, and went straight to the backyard after entering. The backyard of Baikatang is separated into 2 blocks. One side is home to the shopkeeper's family, and the other is the backyard of Baikatang, which is used as a warehouse and for the doctor. The shopkeeper, something happened. The shopkeeper asked calmly, "Have you healed people?" "Oh, what kind of doctor has bad people? Am I that kind of quack doctor? Basically, I won't be cured if I can't cure it. Do you know who I met today? Dr. Xiao from Renhitang 2 houses apart. Are you fighting?" "No," said the doctor sullenly, "I met Lord Zhou, the commander of the Qingzhou Medical Office, the little genius doctor in the capital." The shopkeeper immediately sat up straight and stared at him with wide eyes. "How did you meet her? Have a relationship with her? Is she really as amiable as the letter from Beijing said?" The doctor said depressedly, "What Jingli said is all nonsense. Can a lady in her teens and 20s use the word kind? Dear, it's reluctant, but it's too cunning. She even came to our pharmacy today. Now, pretend to be a patient and say she wants to be a child, and I will give her a prescription for menstruation and blood." The shopkeeper never thought that their fate with the legendary Lord Zhou actually started from here, and he was silent for a while. "But it's not the most important thing. Where did I say it? Oh, yes, I went to an outpatient clinic today, but it wasn't actually from me. I just went to provide some medicinal materials. The patient belongs to Lord Zhou." Just as the doctor was talking, Man Bao and his party also returned to the county office. Bai Shan personally watched the officer put the 3 of them into the prison, and chose a cell next door for the 2 of them. Bihai County is poor, and even the prison cells are reflected. The 2 cells are not the wall that Bai Shan usually sees, but a fence separated by wood. So the 3 of them can see each other as soon as they look up. Bai Shan said to the officer, "Be vigilant at night. They are not allowed to fight, not even between husband and wife." The clerk responded, because the magistrate had specially instructed them, so the clerk paid special attention to these 3 people. When Bai Shan returned home, Man Bao had just come out of the shower and was waiting for him to eat with his still wet hair. Bai Shan sat down opposite her and asked, "How is the mother's condition?" "It's not very good," Man Bao said. "She has suffered a severe loss, and her foundation is not good. This time the bleeding is fierce, and I don't know if it can be cured." Man Bao's expression was very bad, and he said to Bai Shan, "The rich family deliberately caused a quarrel. Obviously, they didn't plan to have this child from the beginning, but the other party probably didn't expect Guo's family to be so stubborn. Pregnant women can do it so hard." At that time, Man Bao turned his head and saw the push. He could see clearly that both legs of the pregnant woman were raised when she was pushed to the ground, which shows how strong the push was. Bai Shan also said about his investigation, "I have asked my neighbors, and the conflict between the two families has a long history." He said, "I live opposite the door. The Guo family put the firewood on the wall, and they could throw half of it when they turned their heads. They suspected that it was taken by the Wu Deifa family. I scolded for a long time ago, saying that the Wu family had poured the ground into rottenness and hurt people with slippery feet. There are too many things like this, too many to list." Man Bao sighed, "Distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors. How can life be interesting when the relationship between close neighbors is like this?" Bai Shan nodded, "I think the root cause of this conflict is the pregnancy of the rich family." He said, "Wu Deifu and his wife have already given birth to 2 children, both daughters. Not long after the third child was conceived, there were rumors in the alley that she was still carrying a daughter." Bai Shan said this for a while, pursed his lips and said, "The rich family was beaten by Wu Deifu for this, but the child was not beaten. These days, the rumors are even worse. Everyone says that her belly is small and round, and she has a small and round belly. It looks like a daughter." Man Bao was so angry that she couldn't even eat. "She can't even get enough to eat, she can't even see her stomach when she wears loose clothes, how can she go big without being small? It is also because of this that she did not see that the other party was pregnant. And she moves very neatly. Obviously, she did a lot of work when she was pregnant, and she didn't even care about the fetus in her womb. Otherwise, a 7-month-old pregnant woman would support her stomach while walking." See you at 6 p.m.